Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Six. Wow, did you see yesterday's Daily Six video? If you didn't, you might actually want to pause this video and go back and get it because God blessed us with a promise and a revelation of his character in Genesis chapter 15. I got a little preaching, I got a little sweat. I got to take that shirt off because, man, this is so good. Would you get your Bibles? We're going to go a layer deeper from Genesis 15. We're going to see where all this unfolds for God's people, God's community. Genesis 15, come on with me. All right, you got Genesis 15 open, but before we look at this again, let me catch you up on where we are, remind you of where we've been. We've been looking at this overall narrative of how God has been at work in his creation, designing us, creating us to be together in community. Of course, we blow it. There's a crisis. Sin enters the human race, messes us all up. God's going to lead us through a corrective process to get us to the cure of Jesus Christ, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Jesus the Creator, Jesus the cure. Now, as we've been working this process, we've skipped over some characters. Now, next month, we're gonna take just this creator phase of God's kingdom, where we're going to learn about God as the creator, that he owns the elements. We're going to slow down and look at that. We're going to take a deeper look at Jesus as the pre-eternal, both the creator and the plan of God, that he was the beginning and he was the end. Of course, we've already talked about Adam and Eve, but we'll go a layer deeper with them. And then as he created them, he created you and me with purpose. After he was done, God took a break. It's called a Sabbath. On the seventh day, God rested. And friends, you and I would be wise to take a break as well. Because when we don't, when we press in, we think we're better than God, we don't need a Sabbath, well, things get worse. Well, there was Noah, and then and the people of Babel. God had to do a grand reset because that sin nature had gotten so bad, community couldn't even develop yet. Somewhere in this whole process, there's a fellow by the name of Job in the Old Testament. We don't actually know where he was. He was somewhere way back in here, and he learned through pain and suffering, God sees a whole lot more than we do. Well, and then we get to where we've been these last couple of days, that God is ready now to build the community with his people, and he calls out Abram and Sarah, renames them Abraham and Sarah, to be the father and mother of the Israelite people. And so they have descendants. We're going to study them in depth next month, and you're going to find, boy, this was a dysfunctional family. Isaac and Jacob, Esau, Joseph, family that was really busted up, and a lot of pain, a lot of brokenness in their story that we're going to see and understand about this community that God has formed with this family we call Israel. But today, we want to turn the corner. We want to look at this fellow named Moses. He's a man that God raised up to provide the law of God for the people, to reveal to the people, this family that's going to grow through this whole process, to reveal to them, here's the rules, here's how it works. Family rules revealed. What does it mean for me to love and live with God well? We're going to find in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, the core text of the law of God, that he reveals to them, here's what it means. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And Jesus even said, listen, later in that law, another verse, love your neighbor yourself. This is the core, the family rules that are going to enable this community to fully live as God has designed. And then, eventually, to take possession of this land of promise that God had given them. Joshua, who would lead the conquering of this promised land. We'll see a lot more about that in a couple of months. No one got left behind. Rahab, a woman who was just a broken woman. There was this family of God, when they follow his ways, it's a family of mercy. Gideon was a family, recognized that God helps those who are in great need. And Ruth, nobody gets left behind. These are great characters of the Old Testament we're going to discover in the next couple months here in our series, Knowing God, and right here on the Daily Six. But can I draw your mind right back to Moses? Moses came out of this whole family tree. We're talking lots of years after, almost 400 years after this family was formed, and Joseph and Isaac, Jacob, Esau, Joseph, the whole family, they ended up, the descendants of that family ended up in Egypt, and they became slaves. God had promised this. Do you remember getting fired up yesterday with me? At least I hope you did. When we saw God say in verse 13 of Genesis 15, verse 13, God says, know for certain this is what I'm going to do. Know for certain. He gave a covenant to Abraham. They cut apart animals and walk between them to symbolize God saying, listen, if I don't keep my word to you, you can cut me in half. God stakes his existence on keeping his promises to you and me. But do you see in verse 13 what he said that promise includes? Know for certain that your descendants, this family, will be strangers in a country not their own. They will be enslaved. They will be mistreated for 400 years. Now, I will punish that nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they'll come out with great possessions. You, Abram, you're going to go to your fathers in peace, be buried in your good old age. But in the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here. Friends, God staked his very existence on keeping his word. But sometimes his word, his promise to us, has to take us through the crisis, the correction, before we get to the cure. Can you give God 6 more minutes? And can you bring to him whatever the crisis is in your life, whatever the pain point has been in your life, can you bring it to him and say, God, that doesn't change the truth, the covenant you've made with me, the promise that if I will believe you, you will fulfill your plan in my life. Can you make that your prayer these next 6 minutes? Even if this kind of suffering is a part of God's plan for you, can you trust him? 6 more minutes. Talk to him about that. And come on back tomorrow for more of the Daily 6.